civilians in Tigray as their top priority, condemning the government of Ethiopia for obstruction of aid. They have demanded the government of Ethiopia to immediately restore banking and other vital services within Tigray and fully restore transport corridors and air linkage to Tigray, putting all the blame on a single party in the conflict while whitewashing the wrongs of the other is not only biased but also unacceptable by any standard. As the government of Ethiopia has repeatedly said, the diversion of humanitarian resources by the TPLF for its military purpose has sputtered the delivery of humanitarian aid in the region. The US and its partners should not have taken the TPLF's incessant killings of several civilians who had worked to reestablish services in the Tigray region lightly. It would be challenging for the government of Ethiopia to force these workers to operate in Tigray, devoid of security for their lives and amid the continued impunity of the TPLF. It is absurd to expect unrestricted flow of humanitarian aid to the Tigray region, while the TPLF is actively attacking neighboring areas and provoking the people to obstruct the process. The government of Ethiopia would like to request the US and its partners not to be swayed by the crying wolf TPLF and downplay the suffering of people in North Wollo, Gondar, Waghemra, of Amhara and Afar regions. The government of Ethiopia would like to request the US and its partners to stop their unbalanced treatment of the conflict in Ethiopia with their oversized sympathy and attention to the TPLF. They should also stop downplaying the suffering of people in areas outside of Tigray at the hands of the TPLF. The TPLF should not be allowed to wave the flag of peace when it senses defeat on military fronts and dubs the international community for its commitment to unconditional negotiation. On the government side, our commitment to peace has been consistent since the war on impunity was started on 4 November 2020. The government of Ethiopia also remains committed to forge an all-inclusive national dialogue. The government therefore calls upon the international community to support Ethiopia's overtures for peace.
It has been 4 months since Saron has joined the 8,000 young women employed at one of Ethiopia's leading industrial parks, a source of dignified livelihood for Saron and hundreds of thousands of women. Keep the opportunity alive.
You're watching Addis News Hour. Ethiopian Muslims have celebrated the 1496th Maulid holiday, which marks the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, with various religious events all over the country. In the capital Addis Ababa, the Muslim community celebrated Maulid at the Grand Mosque with prayers and spiritual events commemorating the birth of the Prophet. Habtam Washagwe has more.
Ethiopian Muslims have observed the 1496 Maulid, or the birth of Prophet Muhammad, with various religious events across the country. Celebrating the holiday, President of the Ethiopian Islamic Affairs Supreme Council, Haji Mufti Umar said all Ethiopian Muslims need to observe Maulid accordingly.
It is not accepted trying to hide the birthday of our Prophet Muhammad. We're not tolerating and recognizing any motive to omit the existence of our Prophet. All wrong moves to hide the Prophet is like abandoning the sun in the sky.
The President calls all Ethiopian Muslims to inherit all endurance and spirit of the Prophet to overcome every challenge during the journey of the Prophet's Mecca to Medina.
Celebrating Maulid is critical to the remembrance of the prophets as an icon of unity, peace, equality and sorrow. While observing the Maulid, I call upon all Ethiopian Muslims to take good lessons how to solidify peace, development and unity to our country.
Addis Ababa Muslim Affairs Supreme Council Deputy President Ali Mohammed for his part said Mawlid is an exemplary of solidarity as well as social values.
Mawlid በሀገራችን ኢትዮጵያ እስልምናን ለማስተማርና ለማስፋፋት ያበረከተው አስተዋጽኦ ከፍተኛ ሲሆን
The Mawlid holiday plays an unprecedented role to expand the thought of Islam and social values in Ethiopia. It is also critical for prayers to pray for peace as well as helping the needy segments in the nation. In general, we have to know Mawlid is a holiday of good deeds and activities which are needed to transcend it to the coming generation.
Meanwhile, Ethiopian Muslims have observed the Mawlid holiday in Gondar, Harar, as well as other towns across the country. Nigeria, Egypt, and Turkey, among others, have also observed the Mawlid holiday in commemoration of the birth of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Muslims across the world celebrate the 12th of Rabi'ul-Awwal, with the day varying from country to country according to the lunar calendar. The Prophet passed away on the same day as that of his birth at the age of 63. The day is a public holiday in several Muslim-majority countries, including Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and some parts of India.
President Sahle-Work Zewde, on the commemoration of the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, paid a visit to a charity called Wendem Khalid Foundation here in Addis Ababa. The foundation is set to rehabilitate and integrate street people into the community by providing them with various vocational trainings, currently training 100 of a kind. The president, accompanied by Addis Ababa Lady Mayor Adanech Abebe, has donated food items to the needy. According to ENA, since its establishment a year ago, Wendem Khalid Foundation has given various vocational trainings to over 1,000 youngsters, so they become a productive part of the community. Somali Regional State appointed Mustafi Mohammed Omar as Chief Administrator of the region. Upon swearing in as President of the region, Mustafi vowed to amplify efforts to ensure peace at regional and national level. Demis Mekrel has more.
The Council of Somali Regional State on Monday elected Mustafi Mohammed Omar as Chief Administrator of a region. Mustafi has been serving as Deputy President of a region for the last 3 years. He will now serve for a new 5-year term as President. Upon swearing in as a President, Mustafi said the Somali region was deprived of self-administration before the current reform came into effect 3 years ago.
Since the political reform embarked 3 years ago, we've achieved a lot in spite of our backdrops. As a Somali people, we witnessed great ordeal in the last 10 years before the new administration came into power. The Somali people were deprived of self-administration in those years due to the then TPLF rigid regime in the country.
The president vows to amplify effort to build peaceful region and country, resisting all challenges from anti-peace actors.
As a Somali people, we've been enjoying peace in the last 3 years. However, we've also witnessed a number of precarious situations, both at home and in the Horn of Africa. We've successfully defended all the challenges in the last 3 years at national level, and it can be attributed to our security force and by and large. We will strengthen that effort to maintain the peace of our region and country.
Attending the official government formation ceremony in Jigjiga, President of Oromia Regional State Shimelis Abdissa thanked Mustafi Mohammed for successfully leading the Somali region in the last 3 years. He expressed his commitment to continue working with the Somali people and government in the years to come.
Unlike some who were stumbled to carry on the national reform in the last 3 years, President Mustafa was able to lead his region successfully. I want to congratulate you for that effort. Wishing you success to all Somali new council members and the President. I want to underline that as Oromia Regional State, we are happy to work with you in further collaboration and brotherhood.
At its first session, the Council of Somali Regional State also elected Ibrahim Usman as Deputy President and Ayin Abdi as its spokesperson. In his inaugural speech, Mustafa has promised fair share appointments with equivalent gender representations in his cabinet.
Uganda's renowned journalist blames the TPLF terrorists for starving Tigrayans by rejecting the ceasefire, blocking humanitarian aid, and stealing farmers' food. He slams the narrative that Ethiopian government is starving its own people, saying it lacks the basis of truth and only aimed at soiling the legitimate government. Santayo Tamrat has more.
An experienced multimedia journalist on African issues with the background in meticulous fact-checking and thorough research explains the TPLF atrocity on millions of Tigrayans as well as the people of Amara and Afar. He blames TPLF for starving Tigrayans by rejecting ceasefire, blocking humanitarian aid, and stealing farmers' food. They have decided to deliberately starve millions of Ethiopians living in Tigray, and they continue being unyielding on calls to restore peace. Thousands have since succumbed to hunger, and hundreds of thousands are relentlessly pleading to the terrorists to stop the fighting, killing of innocent civilians, raping girls and women, but most importantly, not interrupting the flow of humanitarian support into the northern region. However, the narrative that Ethiopian government is starving its own people lacks basis of truth. It's false propaganda aimed at soiling the legitimate government, the writer argues. TPLF and its allies openly rejected the unilateral ceasefire announced by the federal government in June and instead opted to fight on as they killed the people, rape women and girls, starve innocent Ethiopians in the area, displace them as well as use children in battlefield, and so to claim that the same government that rooted for a stop of hostilities to allow farming activities and access of humanitarian support in the area is starving its own people is illogical, untrue, and an act of self-seeking. Isn't it even a fact that, despite the risk involved, the Ethiopian government reduced roadblocks on the road to Tigray from 7 to only 2, with an aim of aiding quick movement of trucks carrying humanitarian aid? It is on record that the government of Ethiopia has been supplying some food items to the affected people in Tigray since the outbreak of the conflict, despite the challenges put by the terrorist group. It is the Ethiopian government that confiscated the more than 500 humanitarian aid trucks that entered Tigray and never returned to fetch more support for the starving people, the writer asks. It is known that the TPLF is working hard to deny the starving people aid in order to blame the federal government with an aim of attracting international sympathy. Farmers in not only Tigray, but also in parts of Amhara and Afar regions where the terrorists are occupying narrate horrible stories of how their ready harvest is stolen by TPLF and that the terrorists do consume the stockpiled food. The federal government has a constitutional mandate of protecting all citizens of Ethiopia, including those in Tigray. It has a responsibility of ensuring respect of human rights of all Ethiopians, and its involvement in Tigray is purely on those grounds. Ethiopians are now united in saying it is an ancient and historical country, never colonized, and should not be disintegrated by TPLF rebel motives. TPLF ought to desist from committing war crimes on the innocent people of Ethiopia, as well as destroying the country, but instead work with the legitimate government towards building Ethiopia together.
The fortress was built in the 15th century by the Mamluk Sultan Kate Bey on the site of the Pharos Lighthouse. The Abu al-Abbas al-Mersi Mosque is the most important in the city. Built in 1775 over the tomb of an Andalusian saint, its walls and domes are covered in beautiful carvings.
And finally, Somali Marine Forces patrol the Indian Ocean waters after the ruling by the ICJ, largely in favor of Somalia in its dispute with Kenya, setting a sea boundary in part of the Indian Ocean in Mogadishu. Last week, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, ruled in favor of Somalia, stating the disputed maritime triangle with Kenya must be split. Nairobi has since rejected the ruling, but for Mogadishu, the judgment is the beginning of a new chapter of tapping into resources within its territory. The contested part of the Indian Ocean contains rich prospects, which includes fish, natural gas, and petroleum. Both Kenya and Somalia lay claim to the area that covers about 150,000 square kilometers. The strategic geographical location has attracted the interest of global powers and conglomerates, all eager to exploit the region's lucrative resources. The future of the two countries is thus intricately connected to this area. The dispute was taken to the ICJ in 2014 by the then President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. 7 years later, on 12th October 2021, the ICJ gave its verdict that ideally declared the disputed area to be part of Somalia. The news is from Reuters. You're watching Addis News Hour, a quick reminder of the day's headlines. The TPLF is once again crying wolf to cover up its fresh attacks on civilians. And Ethiopian Muslims observe the 1,496th Mawlid across the nation. That's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha Domini. Thanks for watching. For all Muslims out there, happy Mawlid.